Hello, Flosstube. My name is Mary, and I'm a Mary Stitcher here on YouTube and also on Instagram. Today is Sunday, March 3rd, and this is Flosstube number 5. So today we're going to talk about some FFOs, fully finished objects. I have a stitch finish. I have some progress on whips. We'll touch on whip go a little bit. And if I have time, we'll slip in a bit of a finish parade on previous finishes, not FFO'd, but previous stitch finishes that are spring themed. So let's get into it. The first thing I'm going to show you today is my FFOs. One of my goals this year is to finish 24 objects in the year 2024. And I'm really coming along pretty well because I think I'm up to 11 or 12 now as far as fully finished items. Now, that's possible because all of the items that I've finished so far have been small. They've been fairly easy types of finishes, pillow finishes, my lazy girl flat finishes. And so, yes, I'm going to be able to do a greater quantity of finishes than I will when I'm looking at lacing and framing or sending things out to be finished, which for budgetary reasons I prefer to try and do as much as I can. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm feeling pretty good about my 24 FFOs in 2024. First finish that I'm going to show you is from Brenda Gervais with Thy Needle and Thread. This is called Pot of Gold, and it's from her booklet. I think it's called Oh Lucky Day. Got it. I'm not sure where I put it. Anyway, this is done on 20 count Aida. I pulled some of the called for flosses, but where I didn't have them, I just filled in with something that I liked from my collection of floss. So this is it, and this is my Lazy Girl flat finish, which is basically just a little pocket that can slide down over an acrylic picture frame that's very inexpensive, and it gives you the ability to do a stand-up without an extra easel back put on it. It's just really convenient, and you can switch them out very easily. So that was my favorite thing in the Oh Lucky Day book from Brenda. Now, the next thing here for FFOs, sticking with the theme of leprechauns and all things St. Patrick's, this is Patrick O Shanahan. This is from Colleen of Rebel Stitcher Designs. So I've got my chart here. There he is, Patrick O Shanahan. And this is the cutest little thing. You can see I finished him pretty much true to the way she charted it. I did use diamond for the gold in the pot of gold, and I probably tweaked a couple of the colors, but for the most part he's finished pretty much as intended. And I just finished it with some simple cotton on the back. So a little pillow finish for Patrick O Shanahan. Colleen has got so many fun designs. A lot of them are cute and whimsical like this, but she also has some really wonderful samplers. And so if you get a chance, check out Rebel Stitcher. She's got good charts. Now, the next finish that I've got for you is another one of my Lazy Girl flats. And this one is from Stephanie Webb at Lindy Stitches. And it is one of her airmail designs, her airmail birds. And they're all set up to look like postage stamps, but they've got, most of them have a sort of a geode wing going on. And lots of fun colors. Typical Steph Webb adorable bird charts. Her bird charts are so much fun to stitch. I have quite a few of these to do. I've only completed stitching 2 of them, and both of those are FFOs here today. So this is the March stamp, the Oriental Turtle Dove. And here's my finish of it. There it is. And again, same theory as with the pot of gold chart, where you just make a little sleeve, slip it on over a clear acrylic frame. It's really easy to store when I want to swap this out for the next bird in the series, which I'll show you in just a few minutes. You just slip this off. You can store them all flat. and it just makes it so convenient, and you don't have to have oodles and oodles of these little frames. You can basically just keep using them over and over and over again. And what's cool too is if you're going to display these with something else in front of it, let's say I wanted to put some little Easter eggs or little twigs or, you know, something to make a nice vignette, you can lift the stitch up a little if you're putting something that's a little taller in front of it, and you'll still get to see the entire stitch. So that's one thing. Now, so we'll demonstrate. Take this guy off because I'm done with him. And now I want to go to the next bird in my rotation, which in this case is going to be, and again, this is one of the airmail stamps from Steph at Lindy Stitches. This is the red-cheeked Cordon Bleu, and just super cute, more bright, fun colors, just different enough from the previous one to be a lot of fun to stitch. So really, really cute. And here he is in his finished form. And again, I just took some simple cotton and made it a little sleeve, just sort of like a little pocket. Now, in this case, being as how it's white Aida, I did go ahead and make a lining for it, so it's basically 4 layers of cotton, 2 on. One is the Aida with some white fabric behind it. You could use interfacing, but I just figured rather than having the interfacing rub on and off the frames when they're going, I used some just simple white cotton to line it. And it also makes it easier to finish the edges when you sew these parts together first, then put right sides together, sew around the perimeter, and you're ready to go. So very easy to do, easy to swap out, and certainly budget friendly to do. So that is the second and final of those birds. Now, next we've got, last of my St. Patrick's. This one is from Priscilla Blain of Stitching with the Housewives. This is Erin Go Baah. It's really cute. I have to say I went for 18 count black Aida. I have not tried 20 count black Aida, partially because black is just that much more challenging to stitch on unless you have really great lighting. And sometimes that's hit and miss since I'm an evening stitcher for the most part. But I love this little guy. This is one of her older designs, but the thing that amazes me about Priscilla is she comes up with the cutest things season after season, and they're so much fun to stitch. So I really like some of the Stitching with the Housewives for a change of pace. They're usually not super serious or historical. They're just fun, and they're cute to decorate your house with. So I really like this little guy. And I changed the color, I think, on the little baby sheep so that they'd show up against the white of the cup a little bit better. But this is Erin Go Baah by Stitching with the Housewives. So again, simple finish, just very basic. I didn't get too fussy. All right, next on the hit parade. I love Teresa Kogut. Teresa's designs are wonderful, from the biggest samplers to the littlest sweet smalls. And this little sweet small is Bunny and Me. Or no, excuse me. I'm saying Bunny and Me because it says Bunny and Bee on the front, but if you look at the back, it says Bunny and Me. So I have a feeling this one had a little bit of an identity crisis. Oh, I apologize for the glare. Anyway, this one's super fun and springy. And what I did, because at this time of year you see so many stitches that involve a cream or a white rabbit, I wanted to go for something that could extend past the Easter season. And so I went with a kind of a brown-gray bunny, sort of like the bunnies we get in our yard. So you can see, same chart. I didn't alter the layout of the chart at all. I just basically changed the rabbit color and punched up the color of the flowers a tiny bit. Again, just so that this wouldn't scream Easter. It would just be a straight up spring summer sort of a filler that I can have in a display that I'm doing. And so what I did is I took some Liberty of London scrap fabric that I had that sort of matched the color of the flowers. And there he is. That's Bunny and Bee from Teresa Kogut. Oh, and this one is on 20 count Aida. Again, I do Aida for a lot of smalls. I do Aida for a lot of seasonal stuff just because it's so quick. And on the high count Aidas, like the 20 count, the holes are really not obvious. The texture of the fabric is nice. I mean, am I going to do a reproduction sampler, a huge piece on 20 count Aida? Probably not. I'm probably going to go linen for something like that, for sort of an heirloom piece that's going to be out all year round. Sure, I'm going to bite the bullet and do the Aida. But for little smalls, for sweet little stitches like this, Aida's great. Stitch on everything. I mean, I think that the options we have for fabrics are so much more now than we ever had when I first started out as a stitcher, that to pigeonhole myself to stitching on one type of fabric only or another, it's foolish. There's so many great options now. It's just, crunchy white Aida was all we had for a very long time, or all that was really offered in kits that were available. And back when I started stitching, kits were pretty much how you did your cross stitch. So again, Aida's great. Use it. Find the count that you like. Find the texture that you like and the colors, and whether or not it's modeled or not modeled, go for it. Do what you want. Stitch the things that you like, and don't worry about what anybody tells you you should or shouldn't stitch. Okay, last of the FFOs. Well, there's a bonus one in a little while, but the last planned FFO is this one right here. And this is Bunnies, Carrots, Eggs by Stitchy Princess Black, who has an Etsy shop. She is a Ukrainian designer, and I can't even imagine what it must be like trying to hold on to your business and do everything you can do in a war zone. But by golly, she's doing it, and bless her heart. I hope that it makes her smile a little when she sees us stitch her pieces. We can't change anything right now. But maybe we can send a little smile and let people know that we're thinking about them. So I like this one a lot. And again, same as before. Second verse, same as the first. We've got a really simple, again, this is sort of that grassy looking background that I used on Patrick O'Shaughnessy. Shanahan, sorry. Shanahan? Yeah. Anyway, same kind of background. And again, these acrylic frames, as you can see, they come in the vertical portrait ones like the one I was showing before, but they also come horizontal. So it's amazing how many stitches you could do. And again, I could raise this up a little bit, put a bunch of felted Easter eggs or carrots, I have some of each, in front of this for a little bit of an Easter display on a bookshelf or a windowsill. It's just an easy way to decorate with your smalls that's not always a pillow and not always framed and hanging on a wall. So that's it. All right, that's the FFOs. So now we will roll on to the stitch finish. Some people would call it an FO, finish object, but I call it a stitch finish. And that is also the completion of one of my February Whip Go goals. My February Whip Go goals were work on your smallest whip, which I did, and that's the one I finished. And the other one was catch up on some sals. Now, Whip Go is the brainchild of Jessie Marie Does Stuff on Flosstube. And I think maybe Jessie Does Stuff on Instagram, not sure. Check it both ways because her Flosstubes are wonderful, and she keeps up with her Instagram pretty well too. So it's a good way to keep up on what she's doing. And Jessie Marie, some years back, decided that the best way for her to make sure she was touching all of her works in progress and not shoving some off to the side was to put them on a board, pull numbers every month, and then stitch whatever number came up. And so it's similar to a bingo. She's the first one to admit that it's basically whip bingo. So this is my little cheesy printed Whip Go. And what Jessie Marie encourages us all to do is make our own board the way we want. You don't have to do yours the way she does hers. Some people will have all kinds of different things to do where they're tasks as opposed to stitching on a particular whip. Mine is a little bit of both. I listed the individual whips I had at the end of the year, and then where I had spaces left to fill in, I would put things like work on your oldest whip, work on your smallest whip, work on the one that's closest to the finish. So there's all kinds of things you can put in there. But I've been fairly successful with Whip Go. The first year I tried it, I crashed and burned terribly. Last year I managed to do really well with my Whip Go goals. This year I only have one that I've dropped the ball on, and that is my Birds from Bernhardt's books. I think I've remedied my linen problem temporarily so that I can circle back and make up for that. But my other 3 of my 4 Whip Go goals, I worked on all of them and I achieved them all. Now, jumping ahead, Whip Go for March. The March pulls came out on the 25th, and my Whip Go pulls for March, you can see I've put the month whenever they get picked. I put which month they got pulled in. So in this case, it's My Forest Home from Blue Flower, and the other one is Summer Quaker from Leela Studio. So it looks like it was 1 and 10 were the numbers that were pulled. So those 2 are ones I'll be working on in March. And I'm really kind of excited about that because my overall plan for the year is to go back and focus on older whips and bringing some of the older ones through. And both of these were 2023 whips, so it's kind of fun that I get to go spend a little extra time on these. And still, I can go back and work on older whips as well. So that's Whip Go. I sort of inserted that in. So now back to my stitch finish. My stitch finish, which was work on your smallest whip. My smallest whip was S from good grief, part of the Letters from Nora group by Nora Corbett. And Letters from Nora were little fairies and flowers and those kind of things. She also did a series of letters from mermaids, and I just like the fairy ones a little better. This one is one I'm stitching for my daughter Shannon. I had to laugh because I saw that Sarah E has also picked this up now to stitch it, and it's a lot of fun. She's gonna really make it her own. Now when you see my stitch, what you're going to see is that my stitch does not have the second little curly Q here. You can see there's a swoop there and a swoop there, and they both have beads around them. Well, I tend to stitch my fancy ladies on 36 count, and by doing them on 36, the beads and stuff still seem to work just fine. I haven't had any trouble with that, but I can stitch with 1 thread, which is my preferred method. Now, also on 36 count, what I figured out is that by eliminating the bottom loop here, I will be able to lace this and frame it in a 5x7 standard frame for my daughter. So that means I will have such a broader choice of what frame to use, and it's going to make it a little more manageable than having to get a custom frame just to accommodate that extra little loop. So the combination of 36 count instead of the typical 32 that most of these are stitched on, the 36 count plus losing that bottom little swoop means no custom framing. Yay! Now here is the finished piece, and I'm trying to get it over here so you can see a little bit of the sparkle, but you can see it still looks fancy enough with this little swoop down here with all of its beads. The flower has lots of beads on it. Fairy wings are crank. She's got little beads here. And then on the wings, I've put 3 Swarovski crystals. It was charted for, I guess they call them treasures in Mirror World, when you buy a bead pack. And I just happened to have my own Swarovski crystals in a color that worked with her wings, and so that's what I went with. I didn't order something new because there was really no need. But anyway, so this is my Letters from Nora S for my daughter. So that is it for things that I'm done stitching. Now we're going to move on into whips, works in progress. Now, as far as my works in progress go, I tend to always start with my 1 thread a day project, which is my oldest whip. This is M.H. Smith 1890, and it's a Bristol sampler. It's huge. I started this in 2021. It is my last 2021 whip, and it sat around for almost all of 2022 and most of 2023 because it's on 46 count, so the lighting has to be right. And it was something where it's such a dauntingly large piece. I thought, I'll work on that later, Well, pretty soon later never comes. So aside from WhipGo as a device to get us going on some of these older projects, there's also the theory of stitching one red thread. Some people call it one red thread before bed. You know, some people call it a thread a day. I try to do one length of, my gosh, words. I try to do one, sometimes two lengths of thread floss per day. Oh my gosh. Anyway, one thread a day, people. That's it. Okay. I didn't quite do one thread a day or one length of thread a day this time, but I still managed to, sorry about the wrinkles again. All right, you can see in that third line that I finished the third alphabet and I started the fourth alphabet. So there she is, moving right along. And you know, it's progress, it's incremental progress. I will get where I'm going if I just stick with it. And really, since I started picking it up at the first of the year as my daily strand of thread piece, I really have done quite a lot. All right, my next one is for the Year of the Dragon Sow, which is being hosted by Samantha, the Huga Stitcher, and her friend Erica, who is, I believe, Fibers and Floss CA. They're both in Canada. I think that's where the CA comes in. But if I have that wrong, I apologize. I really need to look it up and write it down because I feel stupid every time I forget. Anyway, those ladies encourage us all to, for this year's Year of the Dragon, they encourage us to find a dragon chart we like and put some stitches in it. Maybe we'll finish it by the end of the Year of the Dragon, maybe not, but it'll be fun. So what I chose is this one, Here Be Dragons by Jacob DeGraaf of Modern Folk Embroidery. This is one of his Dark Crosses pieces, and that collection of his is things that are kind of quirkier, skeletons and Edgar Allan Poe pieces, and you know, just things that are a little quirky and not conventional samplers. You know, Jacob does beautiful historic reproductions. He does really wonderful things that are inspired by classic samplers, but sometimes it's fun to do something a little different. So this is my dragon. I just loved it. I like the old look of it. I like the detailed border around the side. Now he ran this as an all one color piece, but what I decided I wanted to do was do the dragon and the lettering in green and do this border and the little sprinkling of doodads in the background here in a very, very deep blue, almost a black blue. And if you go back to my previous floss tubes, I've talked about how that color scheme came about. But this is Here Be Dragons. Now, I have finished the dragon. There he is. Okay. He's just beautiful. I just love him. I picked this up on the first day of the sow, which was the 10th of February, and I don't think I touched anything else until he was very nearly done. It just was so much fun to just stitch this little guide and have color changes. It was just a matter of counting, and he turned out great. Now, I still have a long way to go. I've got to do that whole beautiful border, and I have to do all the little doodads and the lettering. But I've got a good start on him. But he's also going to be in timeout for a little time. And it has nothing to do with the design, has nothing to do with it being difficult. What we've got is a piece that I am stitching on Picture This Plus Fog 40 count. Now, for anyone who's ever stitched on Picture This Plus, it has a reputation for being a very tight weave. Something about the process they go through when they're dyeing it. These are very tight, which is beautiful from a coverage standpoint because you don't have kind of super open holes in your fabric. However, the problem that I'm having with being able to move forward on this is when I purchased my Valdani floss, the Valdani silk floss for the dragon is in the 6-stranded balls of floss, and you get those, gosh, is it Rosewood Manor that does all the ones where they use a lot of Valdani and they use a lot of the ball floss? Anyway, I got the green for the dragon. It was beautiful, stitched up like a dream. That silk was wonderful to work with. And I got the other color, the Black Sea, and I accidentally got pearl silk. I saw Black Sea Pearl and was thinking that was colorway. And no, it was not. I got pearl silk, which, like pearl cotton, is a heavier, thicker strand. Now, if I had been stitching this on a 36 count, something that was a little more open and loosey-goosey, I probably could have faked it and used the blue silk. Unfortunately, you can't find the balled 6-strand in this type of silk. You can find cotton, but not the silk, because Valdani has been in the process of switching over from the mill they had been making that floss in, which I think is in Romania, to another mill. Maybe another mill in Romania. I mean, I have no idea on the particulars of that. But a person that I ordered some floss from filled me in, and she said that she had talked to them. The color will still exist. It may be slightly different from previous dye lots because, again, when you're dealing with making, and any fabric dyer will tell you this, when you're dyeing in a different location, just the water and the atmospheric conditions and all those kind of things can change the way colors work out. It's one of the challenges about reproducing fabric dyes. So anyway, I'm just on hold now, hoping that the new silk 6-stranded balls of Black Sea will be coming out soon, and hoping that they will work with this. Worst comes to worst, I'll find another kind of a dark blue, or I'll go through my collection of fabric, of silks, I should say, and I'll find something that'll work. He'll get done, and with any luck, he'll get done within the year of the dragon. But I'm just sort of at a stopping point right now. I will probably go back and do the lettering, which is going to also be green. But yes, there he is. So the dragon is here. It's just the rest of him that has to come along after the fact. All right. Following along on the modern folk embroidery journey, my next whip is the 2024 Modern Folk Embroidery Stitch Along, and the chart is called No Time Like the Present. You've seen me show this one before. I love it. It's set up to stitch in little bands all the way down from the beginning of the year through to October, which then gives you November and December to potentially have it FFO'd by the end of the year, which is wonderful. Now, a couple of things. I started from the bottom and not the top because I stitch in hand and I tend to work bottom up. That's first. Second of all, because this was divided into 10 equal bands, what you ended up with, particularly down here at the bottom, is this kind of a funny thing where the first band you got sort of the lower, tiny little lowest bit of these animals in here. Also, the year is in the bottom band. So I'm not superstitious about it, but I don't like to put in the year so early on that if anything derailed me, that I'd have to pick it out. I didn't want to do it. So the little triangle where the year is, I'm just not even going to worry about that right now. What I did for January was I stitched part of this border and all of the deer. Then what I did for February is I came along, finished this bottom border, put in the squirrel, the little doodads behind the squirrel, the little doodads behind the deer, and I'm beginning this arch of color, which in my case is green. And that's so what I hope to end up doing, which will catch me up with the third stripe, is basically finishing both squirrels, or because this guy's already in, doing the other squirrel, finishing this arch, and then where it says Tempest Fugit right through here. And that'll put me right in line with the 3 bands that I'm supposed to have done by the end of March. So that's the plan. Now, for the actual stitching, here's where we are. This is being stitched on 40 count Zweigart Platinum. Beautiful, reliable Zweigart. It's wonderful to work with. And it really looks good with these colors, in my opinion. So here's what we've got. We've got the bottom border, and the colors of Gloriana Silk are Northern Lights is the blue, Granny Smith Apple is the green, and I've thrown a third color in for the squirrel, the deer. It'll be the sand in the hourglass and parts of the clock face. That will all be done in Gloriana Hazelnut. So by introducing the third color, I think it's going to be more the way I like it. For me, I almost like either monochromatic or more colors. Now in this case, these aren't any of them real super high contrast, which I think is also going to help them sort of play together. That there isn't going to be one color that's really screaming any louder than all the rest. So that's where we're at. But yeah, hopefully by the end of March, this squirrel, I will do the blue triangular section. This is the one where the year goes, so that's going to wait. But I will do that, get this border done, and then have the Tempest Fugits across right above the squirrels. So I'm on track thanks to my Whitgo goal of keeping up on a sow. So there's that. Now, the last of my whips is part of the So Fancy B-Day Sow for Sarah, Memphis Sarah E., who started it, gosh, was it year before last, in December for her birthday. She started this So Fancy B-Day Sow, and she asked us all to pick up a fancy lady to stitch, whether it was a Mirabila fancy lady or some other kind of fancy lady. She said, whatever feels fancy to you, jump in on the sow. So I used that as my excuse to stitch my very first fancy lady, which was Nora Corbett's Holly. Finished that earlier this year. And for this past December's entrance into the sow, I chose, actually my viewers chose, this one won by one vote, by one vote. This is the Mirabila Shimmering Mermaid, and this is an out of print chart. I just lucked into finding it at a really reasonable price, so I'm super excited to stitch her. One of the things I'm finding out, she's a little bit of a challenge. If you look at her tail in here, it's almost like little quilt blocks of color, lots of color changes in there. And what I didn't realize until I was working on it last night is a number of those little tiny sort of diamond shaped or hex shaped sections in there are Kreinik. So my usual MO of stitching all the floss and then the Kreinik and then the beads, I may have to rethink how I do that, because there's quite a few of those little bits in the tail that are Kreiniks. So there's like 5 or 6 Kreiniks on this one. It's a handful. So anyway, still working on that. I haven't gotten very far. I just kind of slipped her in, and here is where I'm at. So you can see it doesn't, it's not clearly defined what it is, but can see already there's a number of different colors. I'm hoping that it's going to look really good on this fabric. This particular fabric is 36 count. Picture this plus, and the color is Tidal, T-I-D-A-L. So you're not getting a really good look at it. Here we go. It looks a lot grayer on camera. It's actually a beautiful sort of a blue-greeny, kind of like you would picture in a lagoon. So I really like it. I'm having fun with this. And again, I just slipped it in at the end of the month and a little bit last night actually. So that is it for the works in progress. Now, this is where most people would talk about plans. And for me, my plans are keeping up with my stitch alongs, keeping up with my Modern Folk Embroidery stitch along. I have to circle back and do my March installment of the Kathy Barrick North Pole stitch along, which shouldn't be hard. It's half of the Santa Claus's coat, so I think it'll be a very nice manageable piece to do. So that's one of my plans. As I talked about earlier, my whip goes are my Forest Home, which will get 5 days or 5 stitching sessions, and Summer Quaker, which is also part of a SAL that involves Hugo Stitcher Samantha. Hi, Samantha. And so I'm excited to work on both of those this month. Now, let me see, what have I done? Oh, okay. Spring. We love spring. Spring is coming. I think, is it this month? I think we get to turn over the calendar season-wise and go to spring. So what I thought I would do was show a few of my spring stitches that are finished but not fully finished. So, first one, since we're on our St. Patrick's Day, this one, and I have notes here because, you know, it's a good idea. Okay, this one is called Malarkey and Shenanigans, and it is just the soup. It's really a fun start. This is from Cherry Hill Stitchery. I stitched it on 18 count fiddler's cloth and pretty much the called for colors, but I'm sure I probably if I didn't have the exact green that was needed, I'm sure I grabbed one of the bajillion greens I have in my collection and finished it. And in fact, I have in my notes, I stitched this in sulky threads, so maybe I didn't use any of the called fors. I used sulkies on this one. I'll be darned. There you go. So there it is. Next we have from HandsOn Design. Kathy Hobburn has these beautiful block party pieces, and I just think they're as fun as they can be. Now, I'm not doing this one in the block finish because just to sort of celebrate my Irishness, partial Irishness I should say, I am going to actually have this piece framed, the long piece. Oh, here we go. There it is. That's what the long piece looks like. And I am going to actually have this framed and just have it be out throughout the year. It doesn't necessarily have to be just for St. Patrick's Day. So here it is. And I stitched this one on some linen that I got from Victorian Motto. The color is called Pioneer. I really like this color. Now it's kind of a little bit more of an open weave, not quite as loosey-goosey as the Old Weeks, but it is a little bit more of an open weave, but it was very pleasant to stitch on, felt really good in hand, and you can see that it's just kind of a cool design. And even if all I did was put this in a frame and then stand it on one of the fireplace mantles at our house, that would be a really pretty stitch to have out. It doesn't even have to be on the wall, but yeah, this one's going to just be framed flat in this way. I have several other block parties that will be finished as blocks. So next we have, here we go. This is one of my favorites. This was the first Lindy Stitches stitch that I did. And there was just something about it. When I was watching her Flosstube, she showed it. this is Edna Goes to Brunch. And just the expression of that little bird is so priceless. I love the pop of color in it. I love the way that the bird, she captured the facial expression of a bird. And it's just fun. I don't know if this is still available on Steph's website or not. I imagine that if you contacted her, she probably could get you a copy of this chart. But anyway, here is my Edna. And there she is. So you can see it is just so sweet and so springy. And in this case, the linen is 36 count Ocean Air by Fox and Rabbit. This was the first Fox and Rabbit I ever stitched on, and man, their linen is good. So this is the Ocean Air. And for the flosses, I think I actually went through and pulled from the silks that I had gotten for another piece and just stitched from things that I had. But she's very fancy because she's stitched in silk, and I love Edna. Now, what am I going to do with Edna? Well, she's going to get this kind of a little flat foldy finish here. And what I've got is this fabric for the front. Here's her backing fabric. And then I have some cool Lady Dot purple pom-pom trim that's going to go around 3 sides. And the reason I chose that is because of the little flowers. These little purple flowers look almost a little lavenderish to me. And then of course you have the bleeding hearts along here, but I wanted to pick up the purple. So the background fabric, the back fabric will be purple. It'll have the pom-pom trim around that'll be purple. And she'll be on one of my Lazy Girl flats. So there you go. That is Edna Goes to Brunch. A really fun stitch. I will say that orange is no joke. That is a big piece of orange, but when you get it done, it's very satisfying. Now, another one of my springtime finishes is Spring Delivery from With Thy Needle and Thread, Brenda Gervais. Brenda can do no wrong. Her stitches are wonderful. Now, this is very pretty, but I, of course, had to play with the colors. And what I ended up doing is using a variegated floss that I had. And here's what I came up with. You can see I stitched them on Aida. The whole border is variegated, so the color changes there are 100% done by the floss, not by me. And again, kind of a gray-brown bunny, but he's very springy and not 100% Eastery again, so he can stay out a little beyond Easter, which is a little early this year, so I'm happy to do that. Okay, speaking of Brenda Gervais, from her booklet Jelly Bean Jubilee, which I again did not grab the booklets, this is my take on this little guy. Now, so many of the characters in these stitches I find frequently all face the same direction, and I think it's just that sort of left to right orientation. We get a lot of left to right, or a lot of right to left, I should say, sorry. So I reversed the little duck in this design, and I sewed him with some whisper thread, although I have to confess I don't love the way that the whisper worked out for his wings. I don't know. I didn't love the whisper. I think I'm doing it wrong. It's nothing about the whisper thread itself. I'm sure it's operator error. It's all me, I promise. Okay, another spring finish. This one is my spin on Emily's Hope. There it is, by the Drawn Thread. Now, the Drawn Thread just has the word hope and the birds and the flowers, and it's very beautiful. But what I did is I took a part of Emily Dickinson's poem, Hope, and stitched that on. So I just charted that. I'm not even sure. I pulled an alphabet from some sampler I have and just stitched it because I happen to like that verse. And this one will be framed. I'll do a full frame and hang it out all the time. So that is Emily's Hope by the Drawn Thread. I didn't obviously collect that chart for some reason. It is somewhere in a basket or a tote, and I just didn't grab it when I was grabbing things. Now, a newer stitch, one from last year's market, is Lucy Beam Immortal. And the first time I saw this, I just burst out laughing because, of course, this is me. I am that girl collecting cross-stitch supplies as if I'm immortal, and I'm not. Here's the finished piece. Very simple, really sweet. And I'm not sure how I'm going to finish that one yet, but I had to stitch that. It's great. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you is just, to me, screams spring. This is from Hello from Liz Matthews. It's My Home in the Garden. And from the very first moment I saw this, I knew I had to stitch it. Absolutely love it. Now, the only thing that I really changed is when it comes to the alphabet, I think she used 3 or 4 colors, 4 or 5 maybe. And what I did is I pulled in a little bit more color and I changed some of the colors of the flowers. Again, I like a lot of color, and particularly in something like this where you have a whole bunch of different kind of flowers. I just really wanted to punch up the color. Now, I was very lucky. I got to meet Liz at StitchCon 2022, and I put in my last stitches there, so it was very nice to meet her, and I showed her my personalizations. She was fine with it. You know, so many of these designers really embrace your making it your own. They know that once they release that pattern into the wild, people are going to stitch it the way they want to stitch it. And I think as long as you do it with some respect for the designer, I think it's great. Change the chart. Make it the way you want. It's going to hang in your house. The designer probably isn't going to be coming by your house. And if they do, they probably aren't going to say a word about what you have done to make their chart fit for your decorations, for your color sensibilities. Some people will take a chart that is colorful and they'll stitch it monochromatic. Hey, I think it's great. Do it the way you want. So here we go. There is my stitch. So you can see I just punched up the colors a little bit. Most of the colors are called for, and I just have added a few others so that there would be a little bit more variation in the color of the letters and a little bit more variation in the color of the flowers. So obviously this one needs to be framed by a professional. I won't try and frame this one myself because it's so pretty and I want it to really shine on the wall. I want it to look really good. So I will just wait until I've got the money to frame this one in a manner that it deserves. So that is it. All right, now plans. Now it's time for plans. This coming weekend is the Steel City Stitchers Retreat in Pittsburgh. And I'm going to do what I did last year. The first year I went, I was able to stay at the hotel and I had a great time. And it's a good thing I did stay there because it was sort of blizzardy that weekend and the weather was terrible. Lots of people had to cancel and couldn't even make it in. Last year, my father had come to live with our family, and he gets a little bit disoriented if I'm gone too long. So what I will do is what I did last year, which is I got up early in the morning, drove into Pittsburgh, spent the day, and came home around dinner time, a little after dinner time. So that was a way that my husband could be with my dad during the day, help him out with everything that he needed, but I wasn't gone for several days, which I think that would be a lot harder for my dad. So for now, I am a Zoom retreat attendee. Thank heavens for the jingle ball and the superb owl stitch-ins. And I can make this one because I can get to Pittsburgh in 90 minutes. And for those who say, wow, 90 minutes each way, that's so long, what you have to realize is our family lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for 25 years, and that's a standard commute in certain parts of Dallas and Fort Worth. To get from home to work is a good hour to an hour and a half on some of those highways. So to me, driving 90 minutes to get to a stitchy retreat is easy, no problem. I love it, and I'll do it every time. Now, so in honor of the Steel City Stitchers and their upcoming retreat, which I'm super excited to attend, this is the retreat piece for the first Stitchers retreat, and this was the 2022, and this piece is designed by Liz Matthews. So she did the retreat piece for the Steel City girls, and it's super cute, and I actually have FFO'd it, so this is my bonus FFO, and it's just as cute as it can be. Now, I changed a few of the colors, but that's just what I do, so there you go. So this is the first piece. Now, last year's piece was designed by the gals from the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery, and this is a teeny tiny little piece. I stitched it on Tiny Ada, but it's the Pittsburgh Pals, where it's the little pierogi and the little pickle, because of course Heinz is here in Pittsburgh. So that's it. Now, when you look at this, you say, oh my word, what are you going to do? Well, I took some of the finishing materials that the girls provided, and I cut them down small. We've got yellow pom-poms, just like the yellow bridges of Pittsburgh. So I'll put yellow pom-pom trim around it, and this little black and white Steelers colors, y'all. So I'll put this and make it a little tiny pillow. And I might even figure out a way to use some of the Steel City Stitchers logo ribbon, maybe across one part of the back. So that's a future FFO that I didn't quite get done in time for today's video. And now we are almost at the end. To you intrepid souls who have been with me the whole time, put up with my lack of words and my stumbling and bumbling, bless you all. I really thank you very much for subscribing and for coming by. And as one way to thank my subscribers, or rather one particular subscriber, this is Spring Parade Set 2. And this is by Lila's Studio. This is so cute. This is a design so nice that I accidentally bought it twice. So here it is. And one of you lucky people will get this chart sent to you if you will put a comment into the comment section, like this video, and if I would prefer that you be a subscriber, that would be great. You're helping my little channel grow. You're helping more people see it. But anyway, if you use the word spring, that's easy. Oh no, don't use spring. I'm sorry. Anybody commenting on anything I've talked about today would be spring. Okay, use the word artichoke. Yes, there's an artichoke right here. Use the word artichoke in a sentence, whatever. You know, an artichoke is green is a sentence, or you can get creative, whatever. That's not gonna affect your opportunity to be the one who is thanked with this chart. So don't say any of those words that get people to come and try and swoop the prizes out. I'm hoping that this will go to a stitcher who wants to stitch it and not just somebody who was surfing around looking for things they could get. So don't use any of those words, and everybody knows what they are. Again, artichoke. use the word artichoke, and you will have the opportunity to be the one who receives this particular thank you. You must be 18 years or older in order for me to ask you for your address. And so if you're going to be receiving a physical item, I have to be able to ask you for your address. So you must be 18 years old or older. So that's number one. And I will delete comments that have those words that tend to attract all kinds of attention to things like this. So that's it. That's enough cryptic foolishness on my part to try to avoid saying the words that draw them. Thanks for coming by, and I will see you in about 2 weeks, give or take. Again, thanks for subscribing. Thank you for liking my videos. And to the people who have shouted me out, gosh, I appreciate it. I really do. You're helping me a lot as I learn to do new things. So thanks a lot, and see you next time.